Okay, hi everyone. I hope I'm audible. Can I have a quick shout out that I'm audible? Yes, no. Am I audible? Okay, I'll assume that I'm audible. Okay, so in the last session, we had discussed the syllabus of CLAT from legal section's perspective and from CLAT perspective. So when we say CLAT and legal section, they basically like let's have a quick recap of what we discussed in the last class. So we discussed that CLAT expects you guys. I mean, CLAT says the syllabus says that we would be giving you 450 words ka passages. Passages is around I mean there are six passages. Question is around like 32 questions are there in legal sections, five to six passages. Passages are based on three aspect: aspect, philosophical aspect, sorry, legal aspect, public policy, and moral and philosophical aspect. When we say legal aspect, anything in which law is there or law is involved will fall within the definition of legal aspect. Public policy, if we have to understand in a layman terminology, anything where welfare is concerned or welfare of public at large is concerned. So we would be taking into consideration the public policy aspect. And moral philosophical, again, let's have a idea in a very basic terminology. Again, when I'm saying moral philosophical aspect, so there's no definition of moral uh, perspective, you can say, or morality nowhere is defined in constitution also. But wherever moral values, which basically varies, it can vary from person to person. For somebody something may be right, for someone that thing may not be right. So where there is a conflict between moral values, customs, culture, traditions, law, all these can form part of your legal section. So considering that, when we take into consideration CLAD, it's a passive format thing. But if we have to understand how to go about CLAT, how to go about ALIT, which is the exam for National Law University Delhi, or for that matter, some of you may be attempting some other examination in upcoming months like MHCET and all. So, considering that when we divide legal section, it is very important for us to understand what is legal reasoning. Legal reasoning from the passive perspective, legal reasoning from the perspective of principle and fact based questions. If you master the principle and fact based questions, you can easily get good marks in legal section of CLAT also. So considering that, in today's session I'll be having a quick introduction to legal reasoning. Then in upcoming session we'll be going ahead with certain terminology like legal knowledge, introduction to legal knowledge, certain terminologies which we see across or come across on regular basis, like principle of natural justice can be one thing, then rule of law can be another thing, then hierarchy of courts can be one thing. What is law, what are the sources from which law derives its authority. Then also taking into consideration, like you may come across aspects like ADR, alternative dispute resolution mechanism, where on a regular basis we get to know about mediation, we get to know about arbitration and all. So everything will be taking into consideration. Sectional tests शुरू कर सकते हैं, बिल्कुल कर सकते हैं. Like as I always say, CLAT does not have a specific syllabus per se. Whatever is being mentioned, it's just saying that these are the areas from which questions would be asked, and CLAT easily says that these are the questions or types which you already have solved somewhere in maybe in class 10, class 11. So considering that, if you have read some of the topics, let's say you have read from legal perspective, let's discuss that you have read contract, so go back and solve questions from sectional test and topic test from contract perspective. Before that, but as in the last class also I had said, before going ahead with the sectional test and topic test, one thing which you guys need to do is solve last 6 years ka paper from 2020 till 2025. Because if you understand the type of questions which CLAT ask, it is very good for you guys. You guys will be able to figure out कि क्या पढ़ना है, क्या स्किप करना है. Also, it gives you a fair idea as to current affairs में what I have to do. Okay, so if you have solved 2025, 2024, I would want you to go back and solve from 2020, because if you look at CLAT 2020 paper, 2020 paper was entirely current affair based. Now, if you go and look at 2021 paper, only one passes compassionate appointment was with from current affairs perspective. Otherwise, remaining passages from were from static perspective. Now, if you go back to 23, 24, 25, 26, sorry, 25, all these are blend of current affairs in static aspect. So considering that when we are preparing, we have to divide our preparation in such a way only. Okay, should we take reference book? So, Drushti, if you have already read prepared for CLAT, so considering that, I would not want you guys to go ahead and purchase any new reference book. The module which is there with you, you can revise from there and start solving and taking marks from MNCET perspective. Okay, moving ahead with the first aspect is best league book legal. Okay, so if you go back again, first rename your. You can come up with your actual name also. If you ask about best book of CLAT from legal perspective, again I would say past year paper is the best thing to practice. Past year paper from 2020 till 2025, then past year paper from 2008 till 2019. If you master these papers, trust me, you need not to have any sort of book. So if you solve past year questions, it is enough. And other than that, obviously you have to go for mocks and also CLAT is all about practice. The more and more you practice, you are in a better position. And with respect to concepts, and also we would be covering that concept here also in classes also, like torts, contract, criminal law, constitution, the basics which is being asked in the examination. So considering, and of course newspaper, because current affairs is something which is being asked in legal section also. So according to me, if you do this much of thing, it is enough. You need not to go for any specific book, and I cannot say that that specific book will land you in top NLUs. If you practice, you have fair chance. Okay, so when we talk about question type categorization, so legal aptitude is divided into two aspects: reasoning and knowledge. Knowledge forms part of your other examinations also. In CLAT, legal knowledge per se is not part of your legal section, but if you go and check the syllabus, they say that legal knowledge questions would be asked, can be asked in GK section. So considering that, still if some judgment has been given by the court, if still there is some sort of amendment happening, some sort of new law is coming, something important happening from legal perspective, it is still very relevant from legal knowledge perspective. And legal aptitude, again, legal knowledge is one aspect. Legal reasoning is something which has, maybe if you look at current CLAT pattern and if you look at old CLAT pattern, there's a difference. If we take into consideration current CLAT pattern, the syllabus says passes up to 450 words. But if you look at those 450 words and then you go back to the questions which is given in that particular passage, one thing is common, that you have to figure out what law has been given in this particular passage, and accordingly you have to apply that law in the given facts and situation. So from 2008 till 2019 and 2020 till 2025, nothing per se has changed. The type of question has not changed. The way only in which questions are being asked has changed. So considering that, if you see past year papers and if you see principle based questions, don't feel like that it is not relevant. It is still very relevant. It is the best thing to master legal section. So one aspect, if we take into consideration CLAT, is passage wala question. If we take into consideration NLUD, SLAT, MHCT, and other examination, they do give you single passes, multiple passes. Cluster questions are also being given. For example, some questions could be based on assertion and reasoning. Also, some questions could be based on like cluster. principle has been given. Now 2 3 principle, there are 5 questions which is based on that 2 3 principles, and then you are supposed to answer. So same idea you have to apply, whether it is passage based questions, whether it is a single principle based question, whether it's a multiple principle based questions, or whether it is a cluster questions. So first thing is you need to understand what law is given, how I'm supposed to break that law, and then how I'm supposed to apply the same in the given fact and situation. So this is from the, you can say, questions perspective. Now moving ahead with the next slide. So topic wise categorization is also there. Legal reasoning, if you analyze papers, you'll find questions from dots. Let's say 2020 paper. Why I keep referring to 2020 paper? Because there were 2 questions which were asked from dots. I mean, 2 passages were there. One was based on absolute liability, and because Vizag gas incident had happened at that time. Second was based on act of God, because we were under COVID, and everybody was invoking the principle of act of God. So it is the best thing to understand that thoughts ke questions are being asked. Similarly, if you look into contract, let's go back to 2021 paper. Communication to contract was there. I think there were 2 passages from contract in CLAT 2021 paper. Similarly, criminal law, they have asked questions, they don't ask sections. So if you guys are reading I mean, you have read IPC, and then you are seeing new Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, don't get confused as to which section is talking about what, because CLAT does not expect you to know the section, or for that matter none of the exam expect you to know the section. What they expect from you is whether you are able to understand the law or not. So they have asked questions like what is common intention, what is similar intention, but they never ask questions. So considering that, even if you have read IPC or you are reading Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, you just need to focus on concepts like what is culpable homicide, what is murder, what is theft, maybe what is common intention, what is mens rea, what is actus reus, what are general exceptions. These are few things which we need to focus on. Similarly, constitutional law, fundamental right is obviously always kind of something which we see in news very often, and articles like article 14, articles like article 19, 20, all these has been asked at multiple occasion from in CLAT and other examination also. And constitution is the base, constitution is the law of the land. So considering that, at least some of the basics of constitution we shall have a command on it. Or for that matter, sometimes question does give you an option of going beyond the passages, and in such scenario mostly the questions are from current affairs and from constitutional perspective, because everybody believes that we know some of the basics of constitution, we know what is fundamental right, we know what is directive principle of state policy, we know what is preamble, we know what is fundamental right, duties also. And also we know the process of I mean appointment of president, prime ministers, and also basic hamara clear hai, which we have studied in school maybe in class 6 7 8 9 sort of. So considering that, constitution they do expect. International law, 2023 they had asked questions from international law. I mean, since the pattern has changed, international law has been asked just once. IP again, kind of very important aspect. GI question was asked this year. So considering that, IP again plays a very intellectual property law from patent perspective, from trademark perspective, from copyright perspective, and in the era of AI, it is still very, I mean, it is very important, and we'll continue seeing changes in the upcoming years also, specifically with respect to AI, that who is having authorship, who is having ownership. So considering that, IP plays an important role. Family law, continuously they have asked questions from bigamy, from Supreme Court's judgment also. So these are some of the legal reasoning topics which we have to focus on for next 1 year when we are preparing for CLAT and LUD and other examination. Legal knowledge, as I already stated, basic concepts, terminology shall be clear. Like natural justice, they have asked questions. So if we know what is natural justice, if we know what is audio alteram partem, just have a quick look at the passages and then you can jump to the questions. Then current affairs, obviously, the entire legal reasoning section also, covers current affairs. Even if something is in news in current affairs, they may ask it in a static format also. So considering that, it is important, and constitution is the basic. If we are fighting for our rights, we need to know constitution. So this is, you can say, a general topic wise categorization. Other than this, also, if something in the news, they may ask questions from it. And then when we read a passage based questions or when we read a principle based questions, the basic funda of ours is, we once is obviously we need to finish it within the given time period. The second is we are reading, it's not that we are just reading for the sake of reading, we are able to comprehend, we are able to figure out what this is talking about, and then accordingly we can apply the same in the given situation. For example, here principle 1 says when injury is caused to a person by an event that could not be foreseen and avoided despite reasonable care on the part of defendant, the defense of inevitable accident can be used. Principle 2 is saying when an injury is caused to a person by natural event that could not be foreseen and avoided despite reasonable care, the defense of inevitable accident can be used. Both the principle are similar, both the principle are having exactly the same wording. But the only thing which makes difference over here is the term natural event. So we have to read each and every word carefully, and then you need to break the principle into different ingredient. And when you are applying the same in question, please check that if something is missing. If something is missing, then obviously the person may not be cannot be held liable. If all the ingredients are getting satisfied, then the person would be held liable. Then all condition mentioned in a principle needs to be proved. This is what I have stated. Disintegrate the principle if needed. Disintegrate means figure out what are the 4 or 5 ingredients which is mentioned over here, or 2 or 3 ingredients which is making this a law, and then you have to use that ingredient. For example, in this principle it says whosoever by deceiving, so deceiving is the first ingredient. Any person dishonestly, dishonest is the second, or you can say ingredient. Induces the person, inducement is the third ingredient. To deliver any property, delivery of property is the fourth ingredient. Commits cheating. So if you break, it becomes easy for you to answer. Similarly, when you are reading passage based questions also, if you underline, and although there was controversy with respect to underlining thing, but yes, if you underline the important aspect that okay, these are the few things which I need to keep in mind while solving the question, then you are good to go. Legal reasoning, do not go beyond the principle, do not apply any law, knowledge, moral aspect in everything. But CLAT also says the same thing, though no prior knowledge is required. But the very next line this in the syllabus says, but if you have knowledge, it's good. So somewhere CLAT has been, I mean, they have been following this trend. Every year there's 2 3 questions where you need to apply prior knowledge. So where question is giving you an option of going beyond what has been given in the principle, please don't hesitate, go beyond the principle. But where it is strictly mentioned on the principle or the passage, then please don't apply prior knowledge. Whatever information is given over there, please use it. So generally in questions like torts, contract, criminal law, you will not have to apply prior knowledge. But where current affairs is involved, somewhere you'll have to. For example, you can go back and check CLAT 2020 ka Arnav Goswami wala passage. 2021 you can check compassionate appointment ka last wala passage. You'll get an idea as to where I'm supposed to go beyond what has been given in the principle, or I mean the paper. So here says anyone who publishes a statement that is likely to injure the reputation of another is guilty of defamation. Anup, a journalist, publishes an article accusing Namish Shah of encouraging the police to undertake encounter. Later on, it was discovered that he had rewarded certain policemen for encounters. So basically, a statement that is likely to injure the reputation of another is guilty of defamation. यहाँ पे no exception is given, nothing. So even though we know if truth is an exception to defamation, we would not be applying over here because principle is not talking about the same. So is Anup liable for defamation? Just going by the passage, we'll say yes, Anup is liable for defamation. Then do not fall into emotional trap. Whatever law you have, whatever knowledge you have, we'll keep it aside. Law is something which applies equally on everyone. So even if we feel like that, oh, this person is a criminal or this person is innocent, we have to think from legal perspective. And that is the best trait of a good lawyer also, na? That you always think from, neither you are tilted toward what is wrong, or I mean, you can say you always have a, what we call, if we have to say this, we can say always have a diplomatic answer. Even if you have emotion, you have to keep that emotion side. So the right of self defense extend to causing death if one's life is in danger. Fact says Samba, a notorious dacoit, is being followed by Vijay, a police inspector who has killed many criminals in the past. On being surrounded with cops and seeing that Vijay is aiming at him with his revolver and about to pull the trigger, Shamba shoots Vijay in the chest. He succumbs to the bullet injury. Is right to self defense available to Samba? Causing death if one's life is under, you know, danger. So this question I leave for you guys to answer, that whether Samba is liable for, can claim the defense of private defense or not. So look for the best. This next slide says, look for the best answer, not the ideal answer. Always go ahead with the answer which is more closely related to what the fact is saying. Always go ahead with the answer which is more closely related to what the question or the law is saying. Wherever you go, you get confused between two of the option. Always choose the option which is very much clear, nearer to facts or the law. So the right of self defense cannot be available to a criminal. इमोशनल वाला एस्पेक्ट हटाएंगे, कहीं पे मेंशन नहीं है तो ए विल नॉट बी द राइट चॉइस. Cannot claim since he was trying to escape the police, could have shot Vijay elsewhere, hence he is guilty. So, if we take into consideration, Samba can claim the right of self defense. The right answer would be D, that he can claim, because the very first line says that don't fall in the emotional trap. So, everybody, whether it's a poor criminal or whether it's a normal human being, everybody has a right to self defense. So, considering that, D would be the right choice. So, this is the basic of legal reasoning. Now, what I expect from you guys is I just gave you a brief idea as to how to go about the same. Now, I would want you guys to first solve all the 5 years, 6 years ka paper if you haven't solved it yet. Also, when you are solving this paper, keep a timeline for yourself. That if I'm sitting and solving legal section, I'll not give more than 30 minutes to legal section of each and every past year paper. 30 minutes, I'll solve one entire legal ka set. This is one thing which you have to do. Second is try to figure out type of questions or type of topics which is being asked. How many of these topics are being asked from current affairs? How many of these topics are asked from static portion? The third thing which you need to do is figure out whether you are supposed to go beyond what has been given in the passage, or whether you are supposed to stick to what has been given in the passage. And this will give you a fair idea as to whether to apply prior knowledge or not. This is the third thing which you will be focusing on. The fourth thing which you will be focusing on, as the syllabus says, three type of passages: legal, public policy, and moral philosophical aspect. Divide the topics from 2020 till 2025 and figure out how many topics have been asked from legal aspect, how many topics have been asked from public policy aspect, and how many topics had been asked from moral philosophical aspect. Then if you are done solving this CLAT paper, also go back and solve ALET ka paper. In ALET now, legal section is not specifically asked, it is a part of logical only. And in logical section only, you'll find just 6 7 questions which is asked from legal section, and that to principal fact based questions. So once you are done with CLAT, shift your focus to practice the past year paper of ALET as well. Once you are done with these things, then you can move ahead your preparation. Like, you can go ahead and look into your sectional test, topic test also. But by the time you're done solving these 6 years ka paper na, you'll figure out what is your strong area and what is your weak area, and accordingly you can go back and start solving it from topic test and sectional test. Public policy basically means anything, like, let's understand it in a very normal language: whatever is being done for the welfare of public. So if government is coming up with a privacy law, so it is protecting public, so it's a public policy aspect. Similarly, again, I give this example very often, that during COVID, government imposed lockdown, because it's very easy to understand this one. And this lockdown was imposed keeping in mind health of the public at large. So we can call it as a public policy measure. I hope this makes it clear to understand what is public policy. Or for that matter, if government makes any law which is for the protection of environment, or for protection of your fundamental right. It can be any new law, it can be an any existing law also. Whichever is talking about or taking care of your welfare will fall within the definition of public policy. But since CLAT is focusing more on current affairs aspect, we would be taking into consideration current affairs, that what all thing government has done in this particular year for our welfare. So this is all about 4 5 things which you guys are supposed to do. In next class, we would be talking about referring to legal knowledge. So thank you guys. See you in the next class.